Keith. They're far better than the one I received at the Scottsdale Rotary the other day, where the guy said, here's the latest dope from Washington, Senator John McCain. So I thank you for that. And by the way, you didn't have to mention that I ran for president. You didn't have to mention that, really. You know, after I lost, I slept like a baby. Sleep 2 hours, wake up and cry. Sleep 2 hours, wake up and cry. And, you know, I'd like to, I'm sure you've probably heard that the approval rating of Congress is at 12%. I don't know if you've seen that polling number or not. If there's anyone here in that 12% that approves of Congress, please raise your hand. I'd like to know where the hell you've been. But anyway, you know, I went through, came back a couple of nights ago from trying to do the Lord's work in the city of Satan, and guy ran up to me and said, hey, he said, anybody ever tell you look a lot like Senator John McCain? I said, yeah. And he said, doesn't it sometimes make you mad as hell? So anyway, I'm very happy to see you. I'm really proud to be in this wonderful place where so many people are able to enjoy the beauty and wonders of our state, the hospitality, the food, the view, the green grass, which somebody in this room really has worked hard to keep up, and the well-deserved reputation that you have worldwide that Starwood has. I have stayed in many of Starwood hotels around the world, and I've always had a great and wonderful experience. And that's because of the people. I passed by as we were walking along a billboard and recognized on the wall as we went through, recognizing the outstanding employees, and I know you're very proud. And that really is the heart of any organization, and so I know that you're proud. And I hope you have some satisfaction in knowing that people who, many of whom work hard all their year and all their time is devoted to their work, and this is their chance to relax and enjoy, and you give them a wonderful experience. So I want to thank you for all you do, not only for my citizens, fellow citizens of Arizona, but people who come here from all over the world. We do not mention to them that the temperature the other day was 117. We try to keep that one down. You know, my predecessor in the Senate was a guy named Barry Goldwater. He once said that we have so little water in Arizona that the trees chase the dogs. I wouldn't say that myself, but it does bring up that I'd like to mention to you just a few issues quickly, and then I'd like to respond to any questions or comments that you might have. The issues for our state of Arizona for the 21st century are fire and water. Fire and water. We're in the middle of a 14-year drought. I'm sure you've seen on television the forest fires that are spreading all over the state of Washington, California, and it's just a matter of time before we have fires here again in Arizona. 20% of our national forest in the last 10 years has been consumed by fire. And part of that is our fault. Part of it is that we're in this drought. Some of you may have been up to Lake Powell and seen how low the water has gone there. You see the bathtub rings, as we called it, as the water goes down. Lake Mead is at its lowest at any time since the dams were built. So, and there are many things that we need to do, but one of them is we need to thin our forests, because what happens when you don't thin your forest, you get dead trees, and when the fire starts, that increases the fuel and the temperature, and of course then it makes it more devastating. There was a time in our history where the fire used to just sweep through and it did very little damage to the trees. I've seen trees literally explode because of the intense heat that's generated by a forest fire. So we're going to have to do things differently in the way we lead our lives and the way that we address the water issues. None of the answers are going to be easy, because if there were easy answers, we would have done them a long time ago. So a lot of us are working with the governor, who has taken a leadership role, members of Congress, mayors, city council, county supervisors, at every level. We're going to have to all work together if we're going to have our children and our grandchildren enjoy the same lifestyle that all of us have enjoyed as citizens of Arizona. I won't go into all the details with you, but forest thinning is very important, and we are unfortunately had a lot of trouble with the Forest Service releasing land so it can be thinned. Also, there's a thing called salt cedar. Many of you know, you've seen it. It was brought in the 1920s to try to keep land together. It consumes water in gargantuan quantities. I'm happy to tell you there's a thing called the Kazakhstan bark beetle that's headed down the Colorado River that eats the salt cedar, but I'm not sure that that's going to be the answer. I want to talk to you about the Iranian negotiations and the deal that the Obama administration has concluded. Why do we care about that? Well, we should care because, in my view, it is going to not only allow the Iranians to acquire nuclear weapons, but it will cause every other country in the region to acquire nuclear weapons, and that is the most unstable part of the world today, a very unstable world that we are living in. We're going to give them about $50 to $60 billion right away. They are the world's state sponsor of terrorism. They are attempting to exert their control over Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, and they continue to have some degree of success. The other problem, of course, as you know, is ISIS. ISIS came about to a large degree because we left Iraq without a sustaining force behind, which we should have done. ISIS is evil. ISIS is the quintessence of evil. You may have seen just in the last couple of days, they blew up some of the most valuable antiquities, 2,000 years old. They just blew it up, as they have done in a couple of other places where they've gained control. They have a perverted version of an honorable religion, of the Muslim faith. They pervert the Koran. They believe that women are to be subjected to virtual slavery. They believe that their mission is to kill those of us who don't share their faith and their zealotry. And I can tell you that they are not losing, because this administration has no policy, no strategy. Meanwhile, they continue to attract young men, as many as 2,000 a month, from all over the world, who are energized and motivated to join their ranks for a variety of reasons, including one of them is that they think they're winning. There's about 2,000 a month that are flowing in from Europe, and some even from the United States of America. You know, when we look at it at one level, there's another level too, and that is when you have a personal experience, it sort of brings it home. There's a young woman from Prescott, Arizona, whose name is Kayla, was Kayla Mueller. Kayla's parents, Carl and Marcia Mueller, live up in Prescott. I've visited them many times. She went, 3 years ago, she went to Aleppo to work in a hospital, motivated by humanitarian motivation. She was kidnapped by ISIS. She was held for ransom. We now know that she was treated as a sex slave by Baghdadi, the head of ISIS, and she was killed. You know, when you meet the parents and you know of what such a wonderful young woman this was, and these evil, quintessence of evil, kill her, then that brings it home a little more graphically to you, as I'm sure you can understand. And unfortunate, the president pulled everybody out. We lost 4,000 Americans in the conflict in Syria. I mean in Iraq, and we had it won. We pulled everybody out, and president called the JV, by the way, that was President Obama called it the JV, is now, as I mentioned, on the move. And they want to attack the United States. The leader of ISIS is a guy named Baghdadi. We had a prison during the Iraq War, the United States did. 25,000 prisoners were there. It was called Camp Bucca. And Mr. Baghdadi was there for 4 years. And he was released. And when he left, he said, "I'll see you in New York." He said that to the Americans, "I'll see you in New York." So have no doubt about what they are trying to do. And now these thousands of young Europeans that are going and fighting in Syria and Iraq are going to go home, and all they need is a plane ticket to get to the United States of America. And that's why this is a threat to us. And this is why we should really care about it. I guess I can't let this event pass without mentioning Mr. Trump, who sought me out as one of his targets. I think that Mr. Trump will be around for a while, but I also believe that his solution for the illegal immigration situation is sadly lacking in details. Mr. Trump wants to round everybody up and send them back to the country that they came from. Estimates are $100 billion, $200 billion. I've forgotten to do that. And I don't know exactly how you go around and round people up. Do you knock on doors at night, or do you? I don't know exactly how you do that. And I have to tell you that I'm proud of Arizona, and I'm proud of our Hispanic heritage. I'm proud of the fact that Arizona is a multicultural state. I'm proud of the food. I'm proud of the music. I'm proud of the people who work so hard and have made our state the great nation, the great state that it is. And yes, we have to secure our borders. The border must be secured. We can do it with a lot of technology as well as boots on the ground. But I also would argue that we also are a nation of immigrants, and we should allow people to come here legally to work, whether it be under a temporary visa. And the way that we can best achieve that in a legal way is that every employer must check for someone who comes for employment for a thing called E-Verify. That's a document that shows that that person who wants to work here is in this country legally. And if that employer hires someone who does not have E-Verify, that is not in this country legally, and the employer hires it, then the employer is subject to prosecution. I promise you, when people find out that you can't get work in this country unless you have that documentation, that's the best way to stop illegal immigration into this country. It continues to be a very, very big issue in our campaign for the nomination of the presidency, and actually on both sides. And I would like us to remember that every nation has to have secure borders. That is our first and foremost responsibility, for an even more greater reason now that we see ISIS, as I mentioned to you before. But we're also, and there may be some Native American in this room, but aside from that, all of us came from someplace else. And we want it to happen legally, but we are a nation of immigrants, and all of us are proud of our backgrounds and our forebears who came here, some who just came here themselves. So we live in very interesting times, and but let me just conclude by saying I'm very optimistic about America. I'm very optimistic. We're still the strongest, most prosperous, wonderful nation on earth. We are now energy independent. Thanks to fracking, we are now a nation which can export energy. There's hardly anybody in this room that can remember the 1970s. But in the 1970s, the OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia, shut off the oil supply, and people waited in gas lines for hours, literally hours. That can never happen again, thanks to fracking and thanks to our energy independence. And my dream is to get that energy over to the countries in Eastern Europe that are dependent on Vladimir Putin's energy, so to help them become independent as well. The second thing is manufacturing jobs. There's still not enough jobs in the United States of America. Millions of Americans have stopped looking for work. And so the unemployment number is very deceiving, actually. But still, there are people now and companies and corporations that are coming to the United States to do business. Right here in Scottsdale, a couple of months ago, I went to the opening of a plant where they make windows, all windows of all kinds. That plant, it was based, that manufacturing facility is based in Brussels, Belgium. And so I went to the opening of it. I met the woman who is the CEO, where the headquarters are in Belgium, and I said, "Why did you come to Scottsdale, Arizona?" And she said, "We looked all around the world, and we thought the best place that we could locate were for people to live, work, raise their families, and the business environment was Scottsdale, Arizona." So I was kind of proud to hear that from her. And finally, I haven't got it with me. I haven't got my 5-pound iPhone with me, but this new device of communications and social networking is amazing. And it wasn't made in China, maybe, but it was invented in the United States of America. All of these technological advances come from Silicon Valley and other places. Not from China, not from India, not from Germany, but from the United States of America. And it's phenomenal. About 2 months ago, I went over to Venice, California. Now, I don't hang out at the beach in Venice, California very often, but I went to this facility called Snapchat. Everybody knows Snapchat? Everybody here knows Snapchat? I was greeted at the door of this facility by a young man with a T-shirt and Levi's who was 25 years old, the CEO, who had just turned down $4 billion for his business. I mean, it was an amazing experience talking to all of his similarly clad employees, none of them over the age of 25. And that's really what I saw, frankly, was the future of America leading the world. So these are very difficult times and very challenging times. In fact, most experts say that there's more challenges in the world than at any time since the end of World War II. But I have great faith and confidence in the men and women who are serving, and frankly, in the ingenuity and the strength of this great nation of ours. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for having me. Thank you for making an experience so enjoyable for so many millions of Americans at all of your places of enjoyment and rest and pleasure throughout the world. And I hope that no one drinks that 50-year-old scotch anytime soon. So thank you very much. Now, if you had a comment or an insult, I would be more than, if you just raise your hand, we have our crack staff here that is, Sir, there's a microphone right there.
I'm curious, Senator. Ben Carson is campaigning for the Republican nomination, and one of the tenets upon which he's basing his bid is the flat tax, 10% flat tax. What is the appetite for that in Washington, and is there a future for that?
You know, it's like these other ideas is the devil is in the details. In other words, flat tax is a great idea. I know of no one that doesn't believe that we should just be able to fill out our tax return on a postcard and send it in. But then the question begins, would you think we should preserve the tax break for home mortgage? Should we preserve the tax break for donations to charity? Should we, what about the R&D, research and development tax? Should we, exemption, should we have that? Pretty soon we start going down the list and very worthy tax incentives, and we find that it gets pretty complicated in a pretty big hurry. So it's very hard. But having said that, my friends, the tax code is this high. Is there anybody here that understands the tax code? Of course not. And so we need to simplify the tax code. The last time we simplified the tax code was 1986. And Americans are angry. When I mentioned Mr. Trump, part of the situation is obvious. Americans are frustrated with Washington. And so I'm for versions of the flat tax, but I'm not sure I would do away with home loan mortgage tax break. I'm not sure I would do away with the R&D tax break. We obviously need research and development in this country and incentives for doing so. So I would have to hear a few more of the details. Thank you. Well, obviously.
Senator, nice to have you here. You mentioned that the general public is frustrated with what's going on right now. Those of us all of us, I'm sure, have 401ks. Some of us have been following the stock market for about the last 10 days, a little discouraging certainly there. But you serve not only as chairman of the Armed Services Committee, you're on, I think, Homeland Security, Foreign Relations, Government Affairs. How do you handle the frustration that you and your cohorts feel at the present time?
We feel a lot of frustration, but I also have to tell you that some of that frustration comes from divisions within our own party. I'm very frustrated a lot by Harry Reid, who basically didn't allow the United States Senate, while they were in the majority, to have debates and amendments on bills and have the kind of traditional work that a Senate should do. But I also see divisions within our own party now that we have a majority in both House and Senate. Let me just give you one example. We all know we need a highway bill. We all know the infrastructure in our country and in our state is badly needing repair, and not just repair, but we need an I-11 up from Mexico all the way up to here and over to Vegas and over to California. We need so much, and we passed a bill in the Senate just before we went on a 6-year bill that is a very large and encompassing highway bill. My friends, colleagues in the House of Representatives, Republicans, wouldn't accept that and did a 6-month extension. We've been doing 6-month extensions for 6 years. So suppose you're, as I was just down in Tucson, talking to the Tucson Chamber, who sees this I-11, this highway, as a tremendous boon to their economy. To have all these goods and things brought up from Mexico and straight up and all the way over would be fantastic. And so they get angry that we won't do a highway bill that will allow them to have that addition and very important factor in their economy. And by the way, southern Arizona, the economy is much worse than it is here in the valley. It's just a fact, and they need it very badly. So sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot or somewhere else, and so we need to, I think, work a lot more closely together, because when the approval rating drops as low as it is, and I joked about it, then the American people are looking for other alternatives. And I happen to think we have the best. Churchill said, it's the worst form of government, but only nothing better has been invented, something like that. And he's probably right. So I hope that we can continue to try to work more together and get more things done for the American people. Well, maybe I could say I thank you all very much. Could I say that, mention that the only ethnic joke that you are allowed to tell in American politics is Irish jokes. I do not know why that is, that you can't tell an Italian joke, can't tell a Polish joke, can't tell any other ethnic joke except for Irish jokes. And that is acceptable in American politics. So the story is that there's a bar in Boston one guy down at either end of the bar. The bar is empty. Guy gets up, walks down, sits down next to the other guy at the end of the bar and says, "Hey, where are you from?" He said, "I'm from Ireland." He says, "Really?" He said, "I'm from Ireland too." "Well, let me buy you a drink." He said, "Well, let me buy you a drink." And buy each other drinks. He says, "Where are you from in Ireland?" He says, "I'm from Galway." He said, "I'm from Galway." "Really?" He said, "Yeah." Buy each other drinks again and slapping each other on the back and drinking. And he said, "Well, where'd you go to high school?" He said, "I went to St. Mary's." He said, "You couldn't have gone to St. Mary's." "I went to St. Mary's." "Really?" "Buy you a drink." Guy walks in the bar and sees all the commotion down at the end of the bar and says to the bartender, he says, "What's going on down there?" The bartender said, "It's just the O'Reilly twins getting drunk again." Thank you all very much for
All right, guys, we are watching as the camera is moving. I'm wondering if John McCain will be doing a one-on-one interview, or at least speaking with the press in a separate area. So I believe that's where our photographer is headed out to now. It looks like all the media is heading out to the area where John McCain will speak live any moment now. There he is, shaking hands. All right, guys, just to recap, Senator John McCain is at the Westin Kierland Resort and Spa. He just gave that speech, held that town hall in the Kierland Ballroom. Again, that is in North Scottsdale. You're in the intersection of Greenway and Scottsdale Boulevard. John McCain spoke to Starwood Hotels and Resorts employees there. Now it looks like he is looking at pictures on the wall. Hopefully we'll be able to ask John McCain some questions, or rather our photojournalist out there will be able to chat with McCain one-on-one. I guess we will have to wait and see what happens. Again, these are live images coming out of Scottsdale.
Check.
I don't know. Wait, you want me to sneak it for you here? I got it. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me snap one with you real quick.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you, Scott. How are you? Nice to see you, Elizabeth. Mucho gusto. Mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto.
Thank you.
to take a picture, but I wanted to thank you for posing.
We do have a couple of questions with them.
Yeah.
First one, why do you think Donald Trump started up a war with Megyn Kelly again?
I have no idea.
What are your thoughts on Megyn Kelly?
I think Megyn Kelly is one of the outstanding. I think that Megyn Kelly is one of the most outstanding members of the media, and I look forward to being on her program every time that I'm asked. I think she's truly outstanding.
What do you think about Donald Trump's immigration policy as it relates to Arizona?
Well, I think that he needs to explain how he's going to round up 11 million people because there are estimates that it's hundreds of billions of dollars. So I think in order to have credibility, it has to have a lot more detail associated with it. I think everybody's entitled to their plan, but they need to explain it.
Do you think the federal government's doing enough on the border for Arizona?
No, we need to do a lot more, and especially in the form of drones and other technology that would be instrumental in securing our border. And we passed legislation through the House that would have provided 90% effective control of the border, $8 billion additional, and 20,000 additional border patrol. Unfortunately, the House of Representatives did not act.
McCain, you just released a report condemning Senate Democrats for blocking an appropriations bill. Can you just talk about the party hiring?
There was a procedure that was used for funding called overseas contingency operations. It was additional funding above the sequestration level, which everybody agreed was bad. Now, Senator Reid didn't like that, so now he is blocking the Senate from taking up and debating the appropriations bills because of his opposition to that process. And part of that is the hiring of magistrates to address these issues of people who have entered this country and are seeking adjudication of their cases. His blocking the appropriations, then many of these judges are retiring, and it's harming our ability to give them due process.
Can you speak about what that means to the security of the border?
Well, it obviously means that people will be out in the population longer, and some of these people may be criminals, and that's the danger here. We never want to see a repetition of what happened in San Francisco. Okay. Anything else, guys?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Senator.
Glad to see you.